I was still chewing the last sip of my gas station coffee when I saw the empty space where my cabin should have been. Not boned, not boarded up, not even taped off for investigation. Just gone, as if some giant hand had plucked it from the ground and wiped away the footprint for good measure. And in that moment, with my brain struggling to process the impossible, one question hammered inside my skull. How do you demolish a home that never owed anyone a damn thing? The morning sun shimmered off Lake Wyvern, the water rippling with that lazy confidence lakes have when they believe nothing bad ever happens there. My cabin, my first real retreat from the grind, had been nestled right at the edge of that shoreline. A few trees, a patch of gravel I called a driveway, a porch swing I bought secondhand but loved like it was a family heirloom. I had pictured quiet weekends, late-night bonfires, and the simple joy of keys jingling in my hand every time I opened the place I bought with my own money. And now, nothing but wood splinters, tire tracks, and a laminated notice staked into the dirt like a gravestone. Property demolished per HOA order, due to unpaid community fees. I stared at the sign, then at the debris, then back at the sign. Unpaid fees. I muttered. I literally bought this place 2 weeks ago. The air smelled like sawdust and diesel. Not smoke, diesel. The sharp, metallic tang of machinery. Fresh machinery. That meant whoever tore my cabin down didn't do it months ago, even weeks ago. This was recent, maybe within hours. A white pickup rolled to a stop behind me, crunching gravel. Out stepped a man wearing khakis 2 sizes too tight and a polo shirt stamped with Wyvern Ridge Homeowners Association in blue letters. He walked like he owned the entire lake, the forest, and the sky above it. "You must be the new owner," he said, not smiling. His tone sat perfectly between bored and smug, an HOA specialty. I took a slow breath. My heart was beating too loud. "Where's my cabin?" He clasped his hands in front of him like a pastor about to deliver bad news. We issued multiple warnings. The previous owner had outstanding fees. When you purchase a property, the debt transferred to you. "No," I said sharply. "That's not how it works." The sale contract specifically stated the property had no liens or outstanding obligations. He shrugged. "The HOA is a separate entity. Our rules supersede federal real estate law." I asked. "I don't think so." A faint flicker of annoyance passed across his expression. Regardless, the demolition went forward. You're welcome to appeal, though decisions are rarely overturned. I stepped closer. "Do you have any idea how illegal this is? You demolish private property because of some invented fees." "We don't invent fees," he said, bristling. "We enforce community standards. If you want a functioning neighborhood, rules matter." "There is no neighborhood," I snapped. "There's a cluster of cabins around a lake. And this HOA keeps them in order." He shot back. I felt the heat rising in my chest. Not embarrassment, but the cold, sharp burn of something far more dangerous. Because he didn't know who he was talking to. He didn't know anything about me. He didn't know the only reason I wasn't already pulling out my phone to call in an investigation was because I wanted to hear him dig himself deeper. "You look upset," he said, feigning sympathy. "But trust me, if you pay the outstanding balance and the reconstruction fines, the HOA will allow you to rebuild." I blinked slowly. Reconstruction fines. He handed me a folded sheet of paper. I unfolded it. Total load, $187,450.72. I let out a laugh. Not the kind that means something is funny. The kind you let out right before someone gets hate. He stepped back, misreading the situation as anger rather than the very early stages of his ruin. "I expect the first installment by Friday," he said. "Or additional penalties will be applied." And with that, he turned and walked to his truck, as if he hadn't just admitted to leveling my property and extorting me for a 6-figure sum. I watched him drive away. The gravel dust swirled around the empty foundation of my life's newest investment. The wind made the lake's surface shimmer again, peaceful and undisturbed, as if mocking me. Most people would be devastated, angry, confused. Most people would call a lawyer, fight a losing battle, and maybe get a partial settlement after years of litigation. But I am not most people. My name is Alex Rivers, and my family, my mother, my father, my 2 brothers, my uncle, and even my grandmother, are all embedded somewhere inside the alphabet soup of federal agencies. FBI, ATF, DHS, IRS. My family reunions look like black budget strategy meetings disguised with potato salad. I'm the only one who didn't go federal. But I've learned enough around the dinner table to know exactly when someone thinks they can get away with something because a person they are screwing over looks like just some ordinary guy. And I've also learned that the fastest way to make a corrupt organization collapse is to push the one button they never expect you to push. The one labeled "I'm done playing nice." I pulled out my phone and opened the group family chat titled The Unit, created ironically, but absolutely used unironically. I snapped a picture of the demolition site. Then I typed, HOA destroyed my cabin. Illegal demolition. Need advice. 3 dots appeared instantly. Then my older brother, Mark, FBI special agent and eternal overachiever, replied, on our way. Another reply popped up from my aunt in the IRS investigative division. Do you have names? I smiled. Oh, I had names. I turned to look back at the date. Something glinted in the sunlight. A piece of metal. A small plate from the side of some piece of heavy machinery. The company's name and number still etched into it. They hadn't even bothered to clean up properly. Perfect. I pocketed it. Then I looked out over the calm lake. So quiet, so innocent, so unaware that the next few weeks were going to change the entire power structure of Wyvern Ridge. They thought they demolished my cabin. But really, they demolished their own future. And I was going to make sure every single person responsible learned exactly how big of a mistake they'd just made. Everything looked peaceful. But revenge is a way of blooming quietly before it explodes. By the time I drove back into town, the sun had climbed higher, bleaching the sky into a pale, washed-out blue. The kind of weather that should have felt peaceful. Instead, every breath tasted like smoke, not real smoke, but the kind that lives inside your chest when something you care about is ripped away. The diner parking lot held exactly 3 vehicles, a rusty sedan, a motorcycle that definitely had more decorative chrome than mechanical integrity, and a black SUV with windows tinted darker than a confession booth. The SUV was my family's, obviously. No one else in a 60-mile radius of Lake Wyvern drove a vehicle that screamed government-issued and full of secrets. I parked beside it and walked inside. The place smelled like bacon grease and nostalgia. There was always a low hum of conversation here, a couple of fishermen bragging about trout, tourists asking for directions, retirees arguing about nothing. But today, the corner booth held 4 people who looked like they could shut down the entire diner with a single wrong look. My family. Mark was the first to notice me. FBI badge or not, my brother always had the posture of a man waiting for someone to make a mistake so he could write a report about it. He lifted his chin in greeting. Beside him sat my younger brother, Dean, ATF, explosive specialist, and proud owner of a personality that oscillated between agent of chaos and golden retriever with a badge. Across from them were my Aunt Rachel from IRS Investigations, who had personally brought down a fraudulent billionaire so quietly the media still doesn't know it was her, and my father, a recently retired DHS intelligence analyst who had the permanent aura of someone who still saw threats everywhere. My mother would no doubt join later, once she finished running background checks on everyone within a 5-mile radius. Sit, my father said, commanding as always. I slid into the booth, the vinyl sighing under me. Mark spoke first. You're sure the demolition happened without due process? I almost laughed. I'm sure it happened without anything resembling legality. They claimed unpaid HOA fee from before I even owned the damn cabin. Dean let out a low whistle. That's bold, almost admirably bold, like the HOA has a death wish. Aunt Rachel clasped her hands together like she'd just been gifted a puzzle box. Did they give you documentation? I pulled the paper from my jacket and placed it on the table. She scanned it, her eyes narrowing. This isn't an invoice, she said. It's a threat disguised as one. No itemization, no dates, no signatures, no official ledger references. My father took the paper next. Who gave you this? I described the polo-shirted HOA rep. Mark's jaw tightened. It was a look he got right before he raided someone's office. So, he said slowly, they leveraged a fraudulent debt claim to justify property destruction and extortion. Pretty much. And they didn't think anyone would challenge them. I smirked. They think I'm just some guy. Dean grinned. Oh, this is gonna be fun. The waitress approached the table, balancing 4 plates like a magician. She paused when she saw the collective intensity of the group. Can I get you folks anything?" she asked carefully. My father's expression warmed instantly. He had 2 modes, intimidating interrogator and charming grandfather. "Coffee for all of us, please, and keep it coming." She nodded gratefully and hurried away. Mark tapped the table. "Okay, strategic breakdown. Who is this HOA? What's their structure? Who signed the demolition order?" "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but I found this." I slid the metal plate with the construction company's name across the table. Dean snatched it up. "Oh, this is good. Contractors always keep records. If they were hired illegally, there will be signatures, timestamps, permits, or the absence of them." Aunt Rachel leaned forward. "Do we know the HOA president?" "No, but I can find out." "Good," she said. "Financial crimes leave trails. And HOAs love trails. They just hope no one ever follows them." My father drummed his fingers. HOAs are small dictatorships with big egos. They rely on intimidation and ignorance. Their biggest mistake was assuming you have no resources. Or no family. Dean added. I shrugged. I tried playing nice. He offered to let me rebuild if I paid nearly $200,000. Dean choked on his bacon. $200,000. Yep. For a cabin demolition they ordered illegally. Yep. Mark scribbled something in a notebook. "We'll need to collect evidence before any agency can move. Illegal destruction of property, fraudulent fees, extortion, potential racketeering. But before we go scorched earth, we need proof that sticks." A slow smile spread across my face. "I can get that." "Actually," my father corrected, "we can get that." The diner door chimed. I turned, and my mother walked in, brisk and focused, a laptop bag slung over her shoulder. She was supposed to be retired from the FBI, supposed to be being the key phrase. She approached the booth with purpose. "I pulled public records," she said without greeting. "The HOA is registered under non-profit shell corporation. No board transparency. No meeting minutes filed for the last 3 years. That's illegal." "Already?" I asked. She raised an eyebrow. I was bored. She slid into the booth beside my father. "Furthermore," she added, "the HOA president is a man named Randall Pierce. He has 3 failed businesses, 2 civil lawsuits, and 1 bankruptcy. He shouldn't be running anything more complex than a lemonade stand." Mark's eyes sharpened. "Pierce. I've heard that name before." Aunt Rachel nodded. "Same. He tried to start a property management firm once. Cooked the book so bad the state nearly pressed charges." My mother opened her laptop. "And guess what? He filed a permit last month for community improvements, but the funds used for the demolition do not appear in the HOA's public financial disclosures." I let out a slow whistle. So the HOA didn't just demolish my cabin. They hid the financial trail. "Meaning," Aunt Rachel said, "someone pocketed money, possibly a lot of it." "What about the previous owner?" my father asked. "Did he really owe fees?" "No," I said. The seller disclosure listed 0 outstanding dues. Mark tapped his pen. Then the supposed debt was fabricated. Dean grinned. Fabrication. Fraud. Financial misconduct. Abuse of authority. This is like Christmas. I felt something inside me settle. Not calm, exactly, but clarity. Cold clarity. "What's the plan?" I asked. My father leaned in. "Step 1. Gather information. Step 2. Document everything. Step 3. Expose the corruption. Step 4. Bring them down. And Step 5... Dean asked eagerly. "Step 5, my father said, is optional." My mother smirked. "That's a revenge step." The table went silent, not tense, but electric. I thought about the empty space where my cabin once stood, the porch swing, the weekends I had imagined, The place I bought with my own hard-earned money. Gone because a petty tyrant believed no one could stop him. He was wrong. So, Mark said, finishing his coffee, when do we start? I glanced toward the window, the sunlight glinting off the town community bulletin board. Right now, I said. Let's go meet the HOA. The Wyvern Ridge HOA office sat in a reproposed storage building behind the community clubhouse. The building was about the size of a shipping container and only half as charming. A sun-faded sign reading HOA Administration. BY appointment only dangled crookedly from a single rusted screw. The irony wasn't lost on me. They demolished my cabin in a matter of hours, yet apparently couldn't be bothered to maintain their own headquarters. My family and I approached in a loose formation. To anyone watching, we probably looked like a group of vacationers lost on the wrong side of a golf course. In reality, we were a blend of legal expertise, investigative skill, and restrained fury. Mark knocked on the metal door. No answer. He knocked again, harder this time. Agent knock levels. Finally, a voice muffled through the thin wall. Office hours are posted. Use the website. Mark exchanged a look with me. You want nice or not nice? Not nice, I said immediately. He smiled and turned the doorknob. Locked. He stepped aside. Dean pulled a case from his backpack, the kind that looked like it might contain tools or bombs. Considering his ATF background, probably both. With a tap and twist on a small device, he slid a metal shim between the latch and frame and popped the lock with casual precision. Please don't tell anyone you saw me do that, he said. We literally asked you to. I reminded him. Still, bad habits. The door creaked open, and inside we found a tiny office cramped with mismatched furniture, a cracked desk, 2 filing cabinets, a single narrow window that seemed allergic to fresh air, and in the center of it all sat a man in his late 50s with thinning blonde hair, round glasses, and an expression of startled irritation. Randall Pierce, HOA president. I recognized him instantly from online records, and by the way his eyes widened when 5 unfamiliar faces filled the doorway. This is a private office, he snapped, jumping to his feet. You can't just barge in here without an appointment. You demolished my cabin without an appointment, I said. His mouth opened, then closed. Recognition flickered across his face. Oh, you're him. Yep, I said. The guy whose property you destroyed based on fake fees. His posture stiffened, but his eyes darted downward in a way that told us everything we needed to know. Guilty men always glance at their escape points, doors, windows, or in this case, the paper shredder beside his desk. Aunt Rachel noticed it too. Don't even think about touching that. He jerked away from the shredder as if it was suddenly electrified. My taxes say hello, she added pleasantly. My mother circled the room, scanning shelves and drawers. You have terrible cybersecurity. By the way, she said, your website backend is basically a buffet of exposed data. Randall recoiled. Why, you hacked my system. No, she replied. I peeked. If I had hacked it, you'd know, and you'd cry. Mark took over with that intimidating calmness federal agents perfected. We're here for information. Nothing more, yet. Randall squared his shoulders. You can't intimidate me. The HOA operates independently. We have the authority to enforce bylaws. Breach them, too, apparently, I said. His face reddened. The previous owner owed 2 years of unpaid dues. When you purchase a property, the debt transferred to you. It's standard procedure. No, Mark cut in. It's not. Even if there were back dues, you cannot demolish a structure without documented liens, due process, certified notices, approval votes, multiple signatures, and a court order. It's all in the bylaws, Randall said weakly. Show us, my father demanded. Randall hesitated. Now, my father added. Randall let out a breath and opened a drawer, pulling out a binder so thin it could have doubled as a pamphlet. He slid it across the desk. Dean opened it and immediately burst out laughing. Dude, these bylaws aren't just outdated. They're missing pages. Literally missing pages. Half the binder was empty. My mother peered over his shoulder. These last sections were printed on a home inkjet and glued in. Sloppily. Randall sputtered. It's an older edition. Aunt Rachel leaned in. No edition of legally binding bylaws is supposed to be glued like a kindergarten craft project. She flipped to the demolition clause, which consisted of a single sentence. If property fails to meet HOA standards, corrective action may be taken. That's it, she said. Randall nodded stiffly. Yes. That is not a demolition clause, Mark said. That isn't even a full legal sentence. That is something a middle schooler writes when they are trying to sound official. I took the binder and placed it gently on the desk. Randall, I want you to listen very carefully. You demolished my cabin. You issued fraudulent fees. And then you tried to extort nearly $200,000 from me. Before this goes any further, I need you to answer one question. I leaned forward. Who paid for the demolition crew? His pupils tightened. Bingo! Mark caught it too. You didn't pay them from HOA funds, did you? No. Randall blurted, too quickly. No, I mean, yes, I mean. My mother folded her arms. The HOA didn't pay because the money wasn't there. The books show irregular withdrawals, unauthorized purchases, misreported expenses. That's impossible, Randall stammered. You don't have access to our books. I have access to anything filed publicly, she said, and your nonprofit status makes certain records public. Aunt Rachel added, and your private books? They won't be private for long. Randall's face turned white. You can't investigate me. You're not authorized. I stepped closer. Wrong. I can't investigate you. But they can. Randall gulped. My father stepped forward, calm and terrifying. Let me put this very plainly. You violated state law, federal law, and common sense. If you cooperate, this stays a civil matter. If you don't, it becomes criminal. And trust me, Randall, criminal is much worse for you. Randall sank slowly into his chair. Dean poked a thumb toward the window. By the way, are those security cameras outside? Working ones. Yes, Randall said weakly. Good, Dean replied, because they probably recorded trucks coming to tear down my brother's cabin. That was the breaking point. Randall's shoulders slumped. It wasn't my idea, he whispered. We all went still. Whose idea was it? I asked. He stared at the desk. We got pressure. From someone on the board. Which board member? Mark demanded. Randall swallowed. Vice President. Helena Garver. My mother's eyebrows shot up. Garver? As in Garver Realty. Randall nodded miserably. She wants your property, he admitted. She's been trying to buy lakeside lots for a private development deal. When you refused her first offer, she gave me an ultimatum. A cold, electric stillness filled the room. I felt something inside me shift, click into place. She wanted my land. She couldn't buy it, so she destroyed it. Mark stood. This just became bigger than you, Randall. I leaned in close, voice low. And this is where your life gets very complicated, unless you tell us everything. Randall's voice trembled. I will. Good, I said, stepping back, because now we had a name, and revenge finally had a direction. If Randall Pierce was a cornered squirrel, then Helena Garver was a polished hawk circling overhead, sharp, territorial, and convinced she owned the entire sky. Garver Realty signs were everywhere in town, on street corners, on half-renovated houses, on billboards outside the diner that bragged Lake Luxury can be yours, sell to Garver Realty. But apparently luxury for Helena meant demolishing anything that got in her way. We left the HOA office after securing Randall's statement, verbally and recorded on 3 different devices. My family didn't do sloppy. We planned, we documented, and we executed. The next stop, the Garver Realty office downtown. I had driven past the building countless times, the tall stone facade, glass windows polished to blinding shine, a brass logo that practically screamed intimidation through real estate. It was the kind of office designed to make you feel small before you even walked through the door. Too bad I had backup. Mark and Dean flanked me as we stepped inside. My mother, father, and Aunt Rachel followed quietly, each scanning the lobby like predators disguised as polite citizens. Inside, the air carried the scent of citrus cleaner and expensive perfume. A receptionist sat behind a glossy white desk, tapping on a keyboard with mechanical precision. She didn't look up until our entire family clustered in front of her. "Welcome to Garver Realty," she chirped. "Do you have an appointment?" Mark stepped forward, charming smile locked and loaded. "We'd like to see Ms. Garver." She glanced nervously at the group. "She's in a meeting. You'll need to schedule." "No need," Dean said, already walking past her. "Sir, you can't." But Dean had a gift for ignoring rules that didn't belong to the federal code. He pushed open a frosted glass door marked executive wing as if it belonged to him. Mark followed. Then me. My mother whispered to the receptionist as she passed, "You should probably call security." The receptionist blinked in confusion. "Not for us," Mom clarified. "For your boss." We continued down a long hallway lined with framed photos of Helena shaking hands with various local officials, mayors, council members, business owners. She liked power. She liked influence. And she liked being seen. But she wasn't going to like what came next. At the end of the hallway sat a double door. Dean pushed it open without hesitation. Inside was a conference room filled with four sharply dressed people gathered around a table covered in property development maps. And at the head of the table stood Helena Garver. Tall, elegant, perfectly styled hair, a suit that probably cost more than my cabin, and eyes that narrowed the second she saw us. "Who are you?" she demanded. I stepped forward. "The owner of the cabin you demolished." For a moment, just a flicker, something like annoyance passed through her expression. Not guilt, not surprise, just annoyance, like I was an inconvenient meeting she'd forgotten to cancel. "Ah," she said. "Yes, the cabin on parcel 14B. "That's the one," I said. "The one your HOA puppet destroyed." She clasped her hand behind her back. "If you have complaints, you'll need to take them to the HOA board." "Oh, we already did," Mark said coolly. "They gave us your name." Her jaw tightened. Her colleagues exchanged uncertain looks. Helena's voice dropped into a silky, dismissive tone. "This is not the time or place for whatever grievance you think you have." My father stepped forward, his presence filling the room like a drop in air pressure. "Actually, Ms. Garver, it is exactly the time and place." She frowned. "Who are you?" "People who know the law," he answered. Dean leaned against the wall, folding his arms. "More than you, obviously." Helena straightened her blazer and dismissed her team with a flick of her hand. "Leave us. Now." They hurried out. When the doors clicked shut, she turned back to us with a different face, not polished, not public, but cold. "I don't appreciate ambushes." "And I don't appreciate illegal demolitions," I said. She tilted her head slightly. "If your structure failed compliance." "Stop," my mother said sharply. "Your HOA bylaws are invalid. Your demolition order was fabricated. And the so-called unpaid fees? Non-existent." Helena blinked once, slow and icy. "I think you misunderstand." "No," Aunt Rachel interrupted. "We understand perfectly. You wanted his land. He didn't sell. So you attempted a hostile removal of the structure to devalue the property and force a sale." A muscle in Helena's cheek twitched. Mark opened a manila folder. "We have the contractor's metal plate. We have time-stamped security footage from the HOA office. We have financial inconsistencies in the HOA's records. And we have a statement from your HOA president naming you as the person who ordered the demolition." Helena laughed, a short, brittle sound. "Randall Pierce is a coward," she said. "He'll say anything to protect himself." "Sure," Dean said. "But usually people lie after someone threatens to expose them. He caved before we even mentioned consequences." Helena's nostrils flared. "You have no proof I did anything wrong." I took a step closer. "You're right. We don't have enough for charges yet. But you know what we do have." Her eyes narrowed. "What?" "A reason to dig." Silence rippled across the room. My father spoke next, voice steady. "If we look deeper, what will we find? Misappropriated funds? Fraudulent filings? Bribes? Conflict of interest? Because we'll find something, Ms. Garver. People who pull stunts like this don't make just one mistake. Helena's facade cracked for the first time. Get out, she snapped. All of you, or I'll have security escort you out. Dean smirked. Please do. I'd love to give a statement on camera. Mark leaned forward, placing a business card on the table. This is my number. If you destroy any more documents, erase records, or contact any of the people we've spoken to, I will escalate this immediately. Helena didn't touch the card. My mother approached her directly, her voice soft but lethal. You think we're just angry civilians, but you made the same mistake everyone who abuses power makes. You assumed no one was watching. You assumed you wouldn't get caught. Helena held her ground, but her eyes flicked downward. Fair, barely there, but there, a crack in the armor. I stepped up last. You didn't destroy my cabin. You declared war, and you picked the wrong family. We turned to leave, but just before exiting, Helena couldn't help herself. You can't fight me, she hissed. You don't understand how this town works. I paused in the doorway. Then let me ask you a question, I said quietly. Do you understand who we are? Her silence was answer enough. We walked out of the office with one thing certain. Helena Garver had just realized she'd made the biggest mistake of her life, and we were just getting started. The drive back toward Lake Wyvern felt different this time. Like the quiet of the trees wasn't peaceful, but conspiratorial. The pines whispered with every gust of wind, as if carrying secrets down the hillsides. Secrets about the HOA, about Garver Realty, about Helena. Helena Garver thought she ran this town. That was fine. She didn't know we were about to run an audit on her entire life. We pulled into the gravel lot outside my demolished cabin. The place looked even worse in the late afternoon light. The debris cast long shadows like broken bones scattered across the earth. But the sight no longer hurt. It fueled me. My father crouched near the patch where the cabin once stood, tracing the outline of the foundation with his eyes. This wasn't a full demolition crew, he murmured. Small team. In a hurry. Probably rushed to get it done before sunrise. Because someone told them to, Mark added. Someone who didn't want neighbors noticing. Aunt Rachel scanned the ground like she was reading tax returns written in date. They didn't file for a demolition permit with the county. That alone is a major violation. My mother, laptop open on the back of the SUV, typed furiously, and they routed payment through a secondary shell account Helena uses for community improvements. What kind of improvements? Dean asked. Ones that only improve her bank account, she replied. I stood in the middle of the clearing, turning slowly, taking in every detail. I want to know everything she's done in this town. You will, Aunt Rachel said, but we need to go methodically. If we want justice to stick, everything we uncover must be airtight. Where do we start? I asked. My mother's fingers tapped one last key before she turned the laptop toward me. A map popped up, parcels of land ringing the lake highlighted in green. Except mine. Mine was marked in red. Helena has been buying up the lakefront, Mom said. 10 parcels in the last 2 years. Off-market deals. Pre-foreclosure purchases. A couple of suspicious tax liens, most of which weren't legitimate. She's collecting them, Dean said. Like trophies. No, Mark corrected. Like a development plan. Aunt Rachel nodded. She's creating a private enclave. Luxury homes. Marina. Private access. That's why she needed your land. It sits at the narrowest part of the shoreline. She can't get the waterfront continuity without your parcel. I exhaled sharply. So instead of making a better offer, she destroyed my cabin. And she's probably done worse, Mom added. You don't build a project like this without cutting corners. My father stood. We need witnesses. Records. Complaints. Anything indicating a pattern of harassment or coercion. Which means talking to the neighbors, Mark said. I glanced toward the winding road that disappeared into the woods. A few cabins were scattered along the lake, tucked into trees like old secrets. I nodded. Let's go. We visited the first cabin at the west end of the lake. An older man answered the door, a fisherman type, beard like a snowdrift and eyes that had seen decades of lake seasons come and go. "Afternoon," he said warily. "We're not selling anything," I assured. "We just want to ask you a few questions about the HOA." He snorted. "HOA? That's rich. They don't do a damn thing until it benefits them. What did they do now?" "They demolished my cabin," I said. His eyebrows shot up. "Yours was the one on parcel 14B. "Yes." He sighed, step bulk, rubbing the bridge of his nose. I knew something like this would happen eventually. "You've had problems with them?" Mark asked. "Everyone has," the man said. "Ever since Helena took over the board, it's been nothing but threats disguised as compliance. She fined me $300 for having a canoe visible from the road. A canoe. Said it violated aesthetic standards." Dean groaned. "That's a new one." The man leaned closer. "And I'll tell you something else. They tried to get me to sell. Helena herself came by, told me I could save myself the hassle and take the offer she was making." "What hassle?" I asked. He grimaced. 2 days later, they cited me for a fence violation, then for a shed violation, then for tree overgrowth. I ended up hiring a lawyer to keep them off my back. "And did it work?" Aunt Rachel asked. "No," he said. "They just slowed down for a while. But Helena doesn't stop. She wants all of us gone so she can build that stupid luxury nightmare she's dreaming up." He looked at the ruins behind me. "I'm sorry about your cabin. I knew something was coming when I heard machinery at 2 in the morning." "You heard it?" Mark asked sharply. "Yep." "Do you have cameras?" my father asked. "Front porch only." "That's enough," Mom said. "Can we have the footage?" The man nodded. "I'll put it on a drive." Footage. Witness testimony. A pattern of coercion. We were building a case brick by brick. We hit the next cabin. Then the next. Then the next. A pattern emerged so clearly it was almost poetic, if corruption could be poetic. Families pushed. Seniors harassed. Fees invented. Letters threatening foreclosure. Offers from Gava Realty that always came right after an HOA conflict. My father muttered as we walked, "This is systemic, not random. She's weaponizing the HOA." Aunt Rachel added, "and pocketing money through shell companies." Dean kicked a pine cone into the woods. "She's like Thanos, but with property law." "She's worse," my mother said. "Thanos at least followed rules." Even I couldn't help but laugh. But the humor died the moment we reached the last property on the North Ridge. The cabin sat dark and silent. Curtains drawn. No car. No mail. A sign hung on the front door. Foreclosed. Property transferred to Gava Realty. My stomach twisted. When did this happen? I whispered. A neighbor from across the road walked over. 3 weeks ago, she said quietly. They said the owner fell behind on fees. Did he? Mark asked. No, he paid early every year, but the HOA claimed he owed thousands. He fought it. Next thing we knew, he was gone. Moved out overnight. Looked terrified. My mother stepped closer. Did he leave a forwarding address? Anyone we can talk to? The neighbor shook her head. No idea, but I remember something strange. What? I asked. Helena was here, the day before he left. The pieces slammed together in my brain. Fraud, coercion, forced sales, illegal demolitions. My cabin wasn't the first casualty, but it would be the last. I looked at my family. We have enough to bury her. Mark nodded. We do, but we're not done. We're close, Dad said. Tomorrow, we go after the paperwork, the real heart of her operation. And after that? Dean asked. After that, I said, feeling the fire rise inside me again. We finished what she started. Only this time, we're the ones doing the demolishing. The next morning, the lake looked different. Not in the physical sense. The water still gleamed like polished glass, and the mist still clung to the tree line. But the atmosphere had changed. The lake no longer felt like a place where someone like Helena held power. It felt like a place about to witness her downfall. We gathered around the SUV before the sun had climbed fully over the ridge. My mother already had her laptop open, her glasses perched on her head, ready for battle. Aunt Rachel had printed files stacked neatly beside her, legal documents she'd spent half the night combing through. My father leaned on the hood, coffee in hand, looking like he was gearing up for a board meeting with someone he intended to ruin. Dean stretched his arms above his head. "All right, let's go knock the legs out from under the tyrant." Mark smirked. "Today, we hunt the Hydra." "And we cut off every head," I replied, slamming the SUV door. The county office. The county building sat on the edge of town, a bland gray structure that looked like the architectural manifestation of bureaucracy. That was fine. Bureaucracy was exactly what we needed today. Inside, the air smelled like printer toner, desperation, and coffee that had been sitting in a pot since Tuesday. We took a number. We didn't need it. A woman at the front desk, middle-aged, sharp-eyed, looked up and recognized my aunt instantly. "Rachel," she said, eyebrows rising. "Is this about the Gava stuff?" Aunt Rachel blinked. "You know about the Gava stuff." The woman snorted. "Everyone knows. We just couldn't prove it." "Well," my mother said, setting her laptop on the counter with the weight of a gavel, "we can." Within minutes, we were ushered into a small back room full of filing cabinets. The woman pulled folders like she'd been waiting years for this moment. "These," she said, dropping the first stack, "are the HOA filings. These," she dropped a second stack, "are property transfers. And these, a third thump, are the complaints. There are a lot of complaints." My father skimmed one. "She's been burying them. None of these ever reached the county board." "Of course they didn't," the clerk said. "She has a cousin in admin who misplaced any filings related to her developments." Mom looked over her glasses. "Not anymore. She doesn't." Dean pointed at a file with Gava Realty letterhead. "This one's marked urgent." My mother opened it and exhaled sharply. This is her master plan. Full architectural schematics. Timeline. Budget. Land consolidation schedule. Does it list a demolition date for my cabin? I asked. She scanned the page, then looked up at me, furious. Not only does it list it, it schedules it 2 months before she sent you the fraudulent violations notice. She planned the demolition before she even pretended you were breaking rules. My fist curled. The rage was hot, but focused. Aunt Rachel grabbed another folder. "Hey, illegal fines, fees, retroactive rule changes. All of these are revenue streams going back to her shell companies." "And here," my father said, pulling papers from a binder, "are the falsified foreclosure notices." Mark whistled. She didn't even try to hide the digital timestamps. Amateur hour. The clerk stepped forward. "If you want to take her down, I can get you something else." We all looked at her. "What?" I asked. She leaned in, lowering her voice. Her personal filings. The smoking gun. The folder the clerk handed us was thin, which somehow made it scarier. My mother opened it, reading slowly at first, then faster. "Oh my God," she breathed. "This is it." "What?" I said. She held up a form stamped with a state seal. This is her ethics disclosure. She was required to list any financial relationships with contractors she hires for HOA work. And I urged. She didn't disclose any of them. Not one. Aunt Rachel's eyes widened. "That's a classy felony." "Here's more," my father said, scanning another page. "Kickbacks. Personal accounts. She paid herself for consulting oversight." Mark lifted a document like it was an artifact from a tomb. This one proves she ordered the demolition crew under a fake emergency safety exemption. I stepped forward. Meaning, Aunt Rachel said, she lied to the state, and the county, and the HOA, and the insurance board, and the contractor licensing agency. So she screwed everyone. My father smiled. "No, sweetheart, now she's screwed." The confrontation was not a dramatic movie scene. It was better. We walked into the HOA office like an organized hurricane. Helena looked up from her glass desk. Of course she had a glass desk, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well, if it isn't the displaced cabin owner," she said. "Have you come to file an appeal?" My mother placed a stack of documents on the desk with a thud that made Helena flinch. Aunt Rachel added her stack. Then the clerk from the county, who had insisted on coming, added Hayes. Mark folded his arms. "We're not here to appeal." Dean leaned against a wall. "We're here to watch your world collapse." My father stepped forward, calm but lethal. "Helena Garver, we have evidence of fraud, coercion, illegal demolitions, false violations, forged foreclosure notices, and undisclosed financial relationships." Helena's smile froze. "That's absurd. You can't." A voice behind us cut her off. "Actually," it said, "they can." The county sheriff stepped through the doorway, hat tucked under his arm. The clerk must have called him. "Smart woman." Helena's face drained of color. The sheriff said, "You need to come with me. You're being detained pending investigation for multiple counts of fraud and property crimes." "You can't do this." Helena shouted, rising from her chair. "This is my community. I built it." "No," I said, stepping closer. "You stole it." As they led her out, she struggled, still insisting she'd win. She wouldn't. Not this time. Not with everything we had. Afterward, when she was gone, the silence felt like the lake finally exhaling. The clerk patted the desk. "You know, there's precedent for restitution. You might get damages." Mark elbowed me. "Maybe even enough to build a bigger cabin." Dean grinned. "With a game room." My father squeezed my shoulder. "With a foundation no one can move." Aunt Rachel nodded. "First thing we do is void every fraudulent lien she filed." My mother closed her laptop, finally relaxing. "And then we rebuild." I stepped outside, looking toward the glittering water through the trees. The cabin was gone. But I wasn't, and neither was Justice. For the first time in weeks, I felt peace, not the artificial peace Helena built through intimidation, but something real, something owned, something rebuilt the right way. I turned back to my family, my unstoppable, relentless, brilliant family. "Let's go home," I said, and for the first time since the demolition, the future didn't feel broken. It felt wide open.